Hey everyone, ByPigeon here with an exciting tutorial series unveiling today. This new series is going to be a step-by-step guide for learning beginner game development in Godot 4.4. I want to start this off easy, so I'm thinking it'll be more of a modern style text-based RPG of sorts. Not too much text, much more point and click. It might not be the most popular genre, but I promise that when we start, we want to keep things as simple as possible. In this tutorial series, I'll be going over everything from game architecture, node information, to scripting, and you'll get to follow along with the assets that I've made. In this pilot episode, we're going to be looking at how to create our title screen, add a button, create a couple functions, and move from one screen to another. Let's go. Alright, so first off, download the assets from the Google Drive and place them somewhere easily accessible to you. Then open up Godot to show the project list screen. We're going to go to the top left and hit the Create button. It's going to bring up this screen right here. Let's name it Skelly Text Based, just like this. Make sure your project path is something that works for you. If not, you can choose where you want your project to be saved instead. The renderer you don't have to touch. / is fine for what we're doing. And version control metadata, select Git. Then hit Create, and it'll open up to a screen like this. And if this is your first time creating a project in Godot, congrats. This is already a huge step. Okay, so first let's go to Project Settings. Project Settings. Make sure Advanced Settings is toggled, and we're going to scroll down to Debug, GDScript. Now we're going to toggle on a lot more warnings for us because we want to work on things properly. This might seem a little counterintuitive because we're basically enabling all of these warning messages, but it's going to help us build good technique as we move forward into learning Godot and GDScript. So let's get warn for untyped declaration, invert declaration to warn, unsafe property access to warn, unsafe method access to warn, unsafe cast warn, unsafe call argument warn, return value discarded is the only thing we're going to leave at ignore. And with that, we can hit close and exit out of the settings for now. Let's familiarize ourselves a little bit with Godot and what's going on in the screen. On the top, on center, we can see the different environments we can work in. If we hit 2D, it'll show us the 2D working space. And if we hit scripts, it'll show us the scripting environment. If you're going to make a 3D game, you would select 3D instead of 2D. And we're not going to hit the game tab or the asset library tab ever, so you don't have to worry about those. So for 2D, this right here is the viewport width and height. It's basically the size of our game, shown by the blue lines if you can make it out. Let's go back into project settings, go all the way up to display, window, and find viewport width. Again, in this workspace, the blue line indicates that viewport width and height for us. So we're going to change this. Because we're working on a pixel art game, it's going to be 320, and this is going to be 180. Just like that, and now our game has been resized once we close the settings. And now the first thing we have to do is create a scene. We're going to go over to the left, right here in the Scene tab, and just click User Interface. There are 3 different types of nodes, or I guess there's 4, but these are the 3 main types of nodes you can create. There's a user interface one, and 3D if you're making a 3D game, and 2D if you're working on 2D. So you're usually going to be using just 2 types usually, the green and the red, or the green and the blue. So let's go ahead and hit the user interface. And what that does is create a scene with a control node as the parent node. In Godot, you're going to build up your game using nodes. Think of them like Lego blocks that you need to combine together. And scenes are just a group of nodes that are saved together as a package that you are going to create. So we're going to save this now, and because we have this top level node when we save, it wants us to name our scene. So we're going to call this title screen. Now let's go over here, click once, then click again to rename the node title screen. And we're going to do it just like this because we're going to use Pascal case here, which is the naming convention for nodes that Godot uses out of the box. It is different from the name that we used to save for the scene, but that's okay and will be totally normal, and you'll see more of that when we save more scenes. The node name and the saved scene name can be different. It's going to be fine. From here, we're going to add a child node. So we're going to do this by hitting right-click, add child, and we're going to go expand this right here. And we're looking for texture rect. And it's right here. When we click it, it shows us a little description of the node and what it's used for. It's a control that displays a texture. And that means that if we have this node, we can put a picture into our scene. So we're going to create that. So we're going to right-click the texture rect node we just created and hit rename. And we're going to call this background. Now you can see that the background node only takes this much of the screen, right? But the entire viewport is this big. So what we can do with these green or UI nodes is that these green nodes have this property right here. There's an anchor preset for any control node types, which are the green nodes. When we click the title screen, we're going to see that it's fully expanded over the entire screen, which is good. And we want to do the same for the background. So we're just going to click this. Then we're going to go to full rect. And you're going to notice that this is going to fully expand, just like that. Alright, so before we throw some assets into our game, let's go ahead and create our file directory. So we're going to right click right here. Then we're going to hit create new folder. And we're going to call this scenes. And then let's right click, create new folder. Let's call this scripts. Right click, create new folder. Let's call this assets. All right. So this is a scene right here. It's TSCN for scene. And we're going to throw this into our scenes folder. And let's just save it. Okay. I'm going to right click the folder. And what you should definitely do is set a folder color. So I like maybe red for my assets. For the scenes, I'll just go with blue maybe. And for the scripts, I'll go with something like green. And this is good because you want to always color code just so that you can easily see what's going on. All right, so now let's get the assets from the Scaly Assets folder that I've linked. And once you download it, you can go through into this title screen folder. And we're going to grab these 3 PNG files and throw them into our assets folder. Just drag and drop. And now you can see them inside here. So let's check it out. If we double click it, it'll show up on the inspector tab on the right side, showing you what it is. And you can't really do anything inside here. You can make some small adjustments, but mostly you're just going to be looking at what it has. We threw a background in here, but this is actually not going to be exactly what it is. So we're going to just call this ground. Now what we're going to do right here is we're going to throw in this texture. When you hover over the PNG file, it'll tell you the dimensions of it. It's 320 by 180. And we already know that our project size is 320 by 180. So what happens when we just drag and drop into here is it's just going to fill up the entire space. However, if the sizes weren't the same, then you would have to use something else. Now, this doesn't look super clear. You can see the pixels are kind of blurry. One thing you can do is you can go to texture and then from filter you can go to nearest, and that'll sharpen up everything, make the pixels look very good. But let's go look at it from the settings, from the global settings. So if we hit reset right here, it'll just go back to what it was initially. Project, settings, we'll just go up here and type texture. and then we'll hit nearest right here. Boom. And that'll be good. Alright, so we're just going to go back into project settings, and we're going to go to Window, and let's take a look at the stretch mode. So there's a couple options for us here. We don't have to go super deep into the details, but let's say you have a pixel art game, just like this one, and you want to have pixel perfect movement, then I think it's recommended, especially in the Godot docs, for you to use viewport. However, if you don't care about pixel perfect movement and you're okay with sub-pixel positioning, then you go with canvas items, and this will help keep everything super nice and crisp for you. So we're going to go with canvas items right here. Aspect mode, we're going to put keep, and because we're using pixel art, we want to change this from fractional to integer, so that our pixels don't get scaled in this weird number. Make sure high DPI is on. VSync mode, you can just turn it off. Close. So now we've got this ground file in here, but we want to add a sky. How do we do that? Well, you see the scene that we created, which is this guy, which is this. I know that maybe the naming might throw you off, but this is how this name gets represented. Yeah, so these are one and the same. So a scene is made up of this very top level node, this parent node, and then inside it you can create a tree of just children nodes. And so if you need another picture, say you need a picture of the sky in the back, then what you would do is you would create another texture rect. So we're going to select this because we want to create a child underneath this level. Right click, add child node, and this time we're just going to search for texture rect because texture rect is how we add pictures, how we add textures to the game. Create. We're going to select this so that we can rename it, and we're going to go sky. And then let's fully expand this like that. Now let's go to title screen sky and let's just drag it in. Boom. It looks pretty good, but as we notice, it's actually covering our mountain, right? So there's like a hierarchy to the nodes in how the nodes get rendered. So basically, what we want in the background needs to be furthest up. So we've got sky right here. We're going to just click it, drag, and then we're going to put it above the ground. We didn't want to make it a child of it. We just want to put it above the ground. And boom. Now it's well positioned behind the mountains and everything looks good. Let's do one more. Let's right click right here, add child node, create another texture rect. We're gonna expand it, and then we're gonna call this border, stone border. Alright, throughout this video you're gonna see that the Skelly assets folder is going to change with what's inside it on my end because I'm still working on it as I'm making this video, unfortunately. Yeah, so that's why it's always changing, but for you guys, you should have everything already in there. So we're going to take this overlay and then we're going to drag it into our assets folder, just like before. Now we're going to go select this. When you select a node, it'll pop up on the inspector with all of its little details. So like say if we click on sky, it'll show you that, hey, the sky is a texture rect, and for the texture, it's got this inside it. But you can also tell that it's a texture rect by looking at the icon. And when you hover over it, it also tells you that it's a texture rect. So we want to work on the stone borders, which means we need to click it, and it's empty right here. So we're going to click on the overlay and then we're going to just drag it in right there. And now it looks pretty good. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to make a name for our game. So we're going to create I'm going to right click, or you can use Control A, add child node, and we're going to add another texture rect. This time we're going to call this sign title sign. And this time, instead of clicking and dragging, we're going to just click this right here, and we're going to go to Atlas texture. If you click this right here, you can see a lot of what the texture rect has to offer you. You can put in different types of things. But to be very honest with you, I only use this in one of two ways usually. Usually, the picture that I have is the right size, so I just throw the PNG file from the assets folder directly in, or I select this and I go to Atlas texture. These are usually the only two that I use, so you don't really have to worry about any of these other options until you get more advanced. Alright, so we're going to click this, we're going to go to Atlas texture, we're going to expand this. And basically when we expand it, if you click it, it'll open. If you click it again, it'll close. But if you click it, it expands this atlas. So this, when you put this up, when you specify that it's an atlas texture, that's just telling the game that, hey, we need to treat it like this. But where the actual picture is going to reside is inside the atlas. So like atlas, you can kind of think of it like a dictionary or whatever. It's just something that has a lot of pictures inside it. So we're going to take the sign and we're going to throw it in. And for us, it does work. It works because it came out of a 320 by 180 original piece, just like this right here. But we're going to do with the atlas textures, actually, we're going to edit the region. And when we select edit region, it then shows up something like this, right? Snap mode, we're going to select this to pixel snap. We're going to select it to grid snap rather. And you're going to notice that it gives us a nice little grid for us to kind of change this rectangle. And for the step size, we're just going to go to 1. And basically what that does is it makes every pixel exist in its own grid. And what we're going to do is we're going to just shrink this down, line it up like that. We're going to shrink this down, get it somewhere close, shrink this side down too, get it somewhere close, and finally right here. Like that. And now you're going to notice that instead of the bounding box being this entire screen, it's just going to be what this is right here. Okay, so let's talk about the anchor preset. The anchor preset, again, if you click this on the stone border or the ground or the sky, you're going to notice that the anchor preset is full rect and it's shown by these green dots right here. Again, it looks like this, right? But if you select this one, the 4 of them is just located on this corner, which means that we're using the top left preset. So let's just play around with this. Let's go center top. You're going to notice that it centers from the top, or you can center from the right, and it'll take this corner instead. So this is one of the nicest things about using the control nodes, or the UI nodes, because you can use this and no matter how your game is scaled or sized, it'll place whatever your UI components you have based on your anchor preset. So say I wanted to center this, it will always be in this position. So we can move it by using the anchor presets, but also we can move it by, say if we select it, and then we press and hold Alt, this indicator will pop up, showing us that we can actually click and drag this without accidentally moving anything else. So when we're moving stuff on the scene, we always want to hit Alt first, and then we want to click and drag. And you're going to notice that even though we can change this position, our anchor position is going to be the same. So imagine like if you had a screen that was twice the size, what will happen is Skelly, the sign, will still be placed in the center of the screen and then be moved over by this number of pixels, by this number of pixels. So it will remain relatively centered. So let's go back, center, and then the last way we can move it around is if you select the node that you want to move, and then you use your arrow keys, and you can shift things one by one. So find a good spot for the sign. You can place it wherever you want. I think for me this looks pretty good. And now what we're going to do is we're going to run it. So you've got two ways to run it, but first let's just go with the normal way. Let's run the project. No main scene has ever been defined. Select one. Select current. Boom. And there's our game. Very cool. Obviously, some things aren't amazing. Right now it's a little bit too small, isn't it? So we're going to size that up, but this is the first part of your game. Very cool. Alright, so the next thing to do, we're going to go to project. We're going to fix what was going on when we actually pressed play. So we're going to go back to display window, and we're going to go up to window width override, window height override. So basically our game is currently rendering at 320 by 180 and we want to make it bigger. So let's say we want to look at something that's 720p, right? So 1280 by 720 should be a good size for us. And then we can hit close, save that, and then just run it. And now that looks a lot nicer. Okay, so the next thing for us to do is let's create a little button. So far what we've used is just the control node up top. We didn't really talk about what the control node is, but we used the control node at the top, and then we used a bunch of texture rects to hold pictures for us. Now what we're going to do is select the top of it, the top title screen, hit Control A, or right click and add child node, and then we're going to go for a button. So then we're just going to start typing in button, and it's going to pop right up as it's also part of the control nodes. So we're going to double click this, and you're going to notice it's going to pop up right here, and it's about this size. So we're going to select this right here, we're going to rename this, and we're going to call this button start. Again, in Pascal case. Now we're going to go over, we're going to select the button, which means that this inspector is going to populate with that node and all the information related to that node. And we're going to go to one of the properties, the text property. So the properties of this node are basically things you can change about the button. And so for the text property, if you fill it in, it'll fill it in with text. So we're going to call this, we're going to just say start. And what we're going to do is we're going to press Alt, and then this is going to pop up, and then we're just going to click and drag to maybe like right here or so. Okay, and then let's try running it again. Nice, we can hit the button, but it doesn't do anything. When we highlight over, it highlights a little bit, and then when we click it, it shows this outline, and the outline never really disappears. But that's fine. Okay, and then the next thing we should do is let's create a new scene now. So how we do a new scene is we're gonna click this and we're gonna add a new scene. You can also do it like no, this doesn't work right there. So we're gonna hit this, add a new scene. We're gonna make this a user interface node as well. We're gonna have control on the top. And we're gonna call this map screen. And when we go to save it, Control S, you're going to notice that this Pascal case is going to save as this. And you're going to notice that it's going to be the same formatting as we have before, which is how we want it. So let's put this inside our scenes folder and save it. Cool, now we can go back and forth between our scenes. Now for here, let's add a background. So we're going to right click right here, add child node, background, texture rect. Okay, and then we're just going to call this background. Alright, so we're going to go to our assets folder, hit Skelly Assets. We're going to go this time to map screen, and then we're going to take this map screen background, throw it into our assets folder. And now what we're going to do is we're going to select this node right here, which will open up the inspector, exposing the different properties of the nodes. And remember, you can always highlight over, you can always mouse over these to read more about them. And then we're going to take the map screen background and we're going to bring it over into here. And so you know how we used the full rect to resize it? But the thing is, it will also resize if you throw in something larger into it. So like I have this 320 by 180 piece and we're going to just throw it in here. It automatically resizes. But what you're going to notice is that instead of it being a full rect anchor, it's anchored to the top left. So we could just hit the full rect. It doesn't really matter, but I think just generally speaking, you do want to use this anchor position. All right, so we're going to save that. Let's say, for example, you wanted to test this scene out. Then you can actually use this button right here, which is Run Current Scene, and this will play whatever scene you have showing up on your workspace. So you hit that, and then you can take a look at this instead. Very cool. So let's move over to this title screen, and let's add a little bit of code. So I'm going to select this title screen, and the reason for that is because I want to attach a script to the title screen node. So I'm going to click this. And basically you want it to look like this, okay? So I don't know if the template is on by default or whatever, or there's a built-in script. You can just turn it off. And what we want to do is we want to just make sure that this is all the same. And for the path, we don't want to put it into the scenes folder because it's not a scene. It's going to be a script. And this file extension lets us know that it's a GDScript. So we're going to click this. And then we're going to go over to our root, and then we're going to go to scripts. And then we're going to hit open and create. Boom. Let's save that. All right, so now we're in our scripts folder. Let's just recap kind of quickly. How do we get back to our scenes? We can see that we can go between our scenes, but this doesn't actually show us the workspace that we had before. And the reason for that is because we're on the scripts side of it. So what you can do is you can press 2D and it'll show you the 2D representation. But if you select script, it'll show the scripting environment. So how does this really work out? There's like so many different ways, right? So when we're in the script, we can still change scenes, as you see right here. It'll change the scene for you. But say you had multiple scripts. Say this one has a script, and imagine if this had a script as well. If you clicked it, then basically it would populate right here and it would switch the script over. So this is how you navigate between scenes to go to different scripts. But say if you wanted to work in this environment, then you would have to click 2D. Otherwise, you would click script. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so back to the issue on hand. We're working with the title screen script. It's attached to this node. First thing first, we're always going to comment right there, and then we'll give it a double space just for formatting, and let's call this node connections, node reference. Then we're going to have a spot for variables, and finally we're going to initialize. Okay, so make sure it looks like this. So what we want to do is we want to hit the button. We want to hit this button and we want to swap over to this screen right here. That sounds simple enough. Okay, so like as you saw, I swapped over to the map screen, but actually I want to be working from the title screen. And the reason for this is I'll show you very soon. Okay, so if we want to do things with this button, we actually need to reference it. So that means if you deselect it, so you can select it by pressing left click, you can deselect it by pressing Control and then left clicking. So if it's deselected, you can press Control, left click, hold, drag, and you can throw it into this and it'll make the reference for you. Again, it has to be deselected, right? So if you select it, you need to deselect it. Control, left click, control, left click. And then you're going to press and hold control, press and hold left click and drag like that. So once you have this node reference, what you can do is a bunch of different things. Remember that it brings up the inspector tab with all these little things. So these properties inside this are all accessible once you make this connection. So let's do this real quick. Let's throw in the function ready. So this is a very popular function that you're going to use all the time. Basically, it's like when this scene initializes, it's going to run function ready. And basically, this is like the very start of what's going to happen. So because we have a reference to this node, we can actually use this variable. And this is the text property, right? It says right here, property text. So how you access these properties is you have to have the node referenced. And then if you put a period and then the property, then you can actually fill it. So then I'm just gonna give you hi, like this. So we know that our button says start, right? But then if we go to our coding environment, we have this reference node and we have this property and we've got this argument right here, this string. Let's run it to see what happens. Boom. This is how you can change properties for anything that you've referenced. It's very powerful. It's the best way you're going to go about changing stuff in code. So remember, if you want to change a property on a node, you have to always reference it. Okay, so let's delete this and let's put pass right there. So if we don't put pass, what happens? It's going to give us an error because it's going to tell us expected indented block after function declaration. What that means is it's just an incomplete function. And so the best way to go about it is just to pass it now, which means it'll just pass. So what do we need to do? We want to create a function. So let's create a function just so that we familiarize ourselves with how to make a function. So when we want to make a function, we have to start with func. This is like a keyword that indicates that what's coming next is going to be function related. After that, you're going to give your function a name. The formatting for this, you want to always do what is out of the box for Godot, and that is lowercase, underscores between words. So let's say we're going to call this function button name change. And to indicate that you're complete with the name, you press the parentheses and it'll autocomplete and give you the right parentheses as well. Next, you're going to space it, press space, dash this arrow sign, and you're going to return void. And obviously we don't want it to run an error, so we're going to hit pass right here. So let's give it some space, double hash sign, and then we're going to call this button, change the button name, change the button name. This is what this function will do for us. So this is the function keyword indicating that we have a function coming up. This is the name of the function, and we've got an arrow key and void right here. So what this means is it returns void. You don't have to really know what it really means right now, but just know that if you make functions as you're starting out, you probably want to return void. Inside the function is going to be what happens when you run this function. So let's say we're going to go again with button start, and as you keep typing it, it'll pop up right here. And if this is the one you want, you press tab, it'll fill it out for you. And then I want to access a property on button start, which is going to be text again. And how do you know what to fill for this property? Let's see. If you highlight over text, it tells you that it wants a string right here. Property button text, we've got this exact word for word, right? So button is a type right here. And so we've specified our button, which is a type button as well. So everything's looking good, and it's button text, right? It wants a string, and it shows us in this comment that you can use the quotation marks to create your string. So again, we're just gonna say hello right here, and let's run it. And you're gonna notice that nothing happens. And that makes a lot of sense because we haven't actually called this function. The only thing that's being run right now is this initialization. So if we wanted to use this function, we would actually have to put it here. And so what the game does is once it loads the screen, it's gonna check the script, and then if it has an initialization function ready, it's gonna run whatever's inside here at the start. So we're gonna copy this and we're gonna put it right here so that now when this initializes, it's gonna do this button name change. So let's hit play, and now it works properly. It changes the name of the button. So what we're gonna do right here, let's just make it a little less goofy and just say start game. And remember, whenever you want to test your game, just to see the changes, just press play. I don't like how this is, so this is a nice thing about like testing, retesting your game, just test often. As you can see, the button now overhangs outside of the screen. So what I need to do is I need to X, I need to go to 2D, and I'm gonna select the button, press Alt, and then I'm gonna move it a little bit further down right here. I'm gonna save it and then press play, and that looks much better for me. So we want to get back into the coding environment. How do we do that? Remember, you can hit the script button right here, or you can actually hit this script and it'll open the script. So I'll hit this button this time and it'll open this up. So remember, we wanted to change to the second scene. So we've got our title screen and now we have a map screen. So let's talk about signals. I know this might be a big jump, but it's okay, it's not super crazy difficult. So the nice thing about a button is if you select the button, the inspector tab shows the properties of the button. But what we're gonna look at this time is we're gonna go to node right here, and it's gonna show you the signals if you have signals highlighted. Otherwise you can select groups, but we're talking signals here. And this is all the signals that the button has. Specifically, it's the most class specific, it's for the button. These are the signals that the button has, and then it becomes less specific because the button class is part of the control, which is part of canvas items, which is part of node, which is part of object. And so you have access to all of these signals here. And so what we want to do with the button is we want to use the pressed signal. This is a signal that emits when you actually press the button. So when we press the button, we want something to happen, which means we need to utilize this signal. So to do that, we just double click, and it's gonna ask us where we want to connect to, what script we want to connect to. And we want to connect it to the very top. We want to connect it to our title screen. So then the receiver method, we don't have to change anything about it. Just know that it'll create the function name based on the name of the node. So it's usually a good idea to give your nodes a little bit of description so that when these methods or when these functions get named, that they are identifiable. So we're just going to hit connect, and you're going to notice that it's going to auto create a function for us with the name that it's specified. The thing for us to note is this symbol right here, which means that it's connected to this button. We can click it and it'll show us the source. It'll show us what signal, and it'll show to where it's been connected, the title screen. On the scene navigator side, you're going to also notice that this pops up, which shows that this node has one connection. So say we select this node and then we just go back to the inspector just to show the properties. We select this and then it'll show us the signals, and you can find the signal that it's connected to. So if you were to double click this, or not double click, but if you were to right click, you can disconnect the signal. So on button start pressed, let's just start with something very simple. Let's use a print function. Print hi. Okay, so in Godot, it's pretty simple. In GDScript, it's pretty simple to print stuff to the outputter. We're going to just call the function print, and then we're going to throw a string inside there. And strings are always with quotation marks. And so we're going to hit play. And we're going to move this just a slight bit up so that we can see our output right here. And when I hit start game, it's going to give us this hi message, indicating that this button is working properly, the signal is working as intended. That's all good. Okay, so now that we know that the button is working properly, it's been properly connected, let's comment this and give it a little bit more description. We're going to say this is scene change to map screen. Okay, next is a little complicated, but you just have to know this. You don't have to know why. Just know that if you want to change between scenes, this is how you're always going to do it. And it starts with a get tree. Remember that if there's a... So, okay, let me do that again. Get tree. And this is the one that I want, and that's the one that's highlighted. So remember, you can press tab here, and it'll autofill for us. And remember that if there's a parentheses on it, this is actually a function. So some function is getting called. From this, remember it's a little complicated, but we're gonna go to, it shows right up, change scene to file. So we can just select this. If you left click it, it'll hover over it, it'll highlight it, and you can press tab. And the nice thing about this is it auto completes for us. So we can actually select map screen right here if we wanted to, but let me show you what happens if you don't know how to do that. So just put your cursor in here, and we're going to open up our scenes folder, and we want to go to the map screen, so we click and drag this and drop it in right there, and it'll link the scene. So let's see what this does. Hit play, hit this, and boom, we've changed scenes. This is still outputting our hi because we have this print function in here, but everything is as expected. I think this is a nice place to stop for us now. There's a lot more you can do. Maybe you guys can throw a button in here to get back to the home screen. Try it out. Let me know if you guys have any questions. There's a lot more that's coming, so look forward to it. Peace.